Clyde, I think we're ready. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay,
We're ready.
good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, November 3rd, Hartland Selectboard meeting. It is 5:30. The first order of business are the Selectboard minutes from October the 20th. I would entertain a motion to accept those.
Well, I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. And we've already recognized the need for a change in the members present. We'll be adding Clyde, who physically is here.
Are we doing physically or mentally present?
I'm skipping that, Jim.
Sorry. Did that go up?
Maybe a lot of vacancies then.
Okay. Are there any other changes? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. The next item are the warrants or the accounts payable through today, November the 3rd. Again, I would entertain a motion to accept them.
So moved.
Thank you, Tom. Second.
So second.
Thank you, Jim. Okay. Any comments?
So just on payroll, I noticed we have a lot more signatures.
Correct. The Board of Trustees, the Library Board of Trustees has been added. Okay. So you are approving one combined because we can't split it out. We can't split the library staff out independently. Okay. So just a point of clarity, you are signing and approving town staff, not library staff. Yes.
John, is the mowing for TJP Enterprises,
yep.
There's three of them rolled into one there on page 3.
One invoice for TJP.
For 10/30, 11/6, and 11/13?
Correct. It's a twice a month bill.
Okay. And then the other question I have is the tree removal with chippers.
Yep.
Was that a cemetery? Or
nope, that was just town tree removal. It was the pine on Lover's Lane. There was a tree up on Chute Road.
Okay.
6 dead maples on the Quechee Road. So.
Okay.
Is there a project to do the trees in Weed Cemetery?
There, yes, there is a project to do the trees and weeds in the Weed Road Cemetery, but there was a miscommunication amongst the staff at Sunnymead, so we're working to revise that proposal to get access without going across their property.
Okay. Any other questions, comments on the warrant? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. We do have one adjustment to the agenda tonight. We're going to push the representatives from the fire and the rescue squad back a little bit, probably after the budget review, possibly. Are there any other adjustments, John, that you're aware of?
No.
Okay. Then moving on to public comments. Are there any public comments? Grace, is there anything online?
Just here to answer questions if you have any.
Okay. I'm sorry, Dan.
I was just here to answer questions if you had them, where we were.
Okay. Well, it is a bit confusing, just given where things are with the addendums that were talked about at the last meeting versus any factual changes that would cause a redo of the town plan.
Could we make an adjustment to the agenda to include a discussion about this planning commission?
I think that would probably be good. We can do that first, if that's so.
Yep. Under old, we do under old
business, but if you don't mind waiting a little bit down.
Okay. Any other public comments? Okay, then moving on. why don't we stay with Dan on the first item of business, an update on where we are with the 2025 town plan is what we're talking about.
My understanding is we're going to vote on a version that is pretty much is what the working plan, the version that was put out before our last meeting, and there's just going to be some corrections in there. The only section I think was amended was the library stuff was out of date. So nobody seems to consider those substantive changes. So I think we're good to go on that. Anything else, we heard some comments at our meeting, but there was nothing that we took particular issue was Tom brought up a good point about the gravel. This is, that area of town, the industrial area. We'd be open if, if you wanted to send anything back to us, but if the select board wanted to do it with their hearing, that would be fine too.
Okay. Tom.
So during the public hearing, one of the members said he sort of had a laundry list of other things that he thought we should include when we do our review. Do you remember that? Those other items.
Yeah, they weren't things that we weren't necessarily recommending. They were things that were, I think the public had brought up, that if we stopped to consider them, we were going to push the whole process back. So I don't think anything comes with any direction.
So generally, when you have a public hearing, the public hearing is to take public comment and then go back and make whatever amendments, but you never really allowed an opportunity. You allowed for public comment, but it wasn't going to make any changes. And I guess that's really not the intent. I'm not blaming you, Dan, but
no.
You happen to be the sacrificial lamb. And I like, for instance, my comment about the industrial park it's fairly significant to me.
Yes, we agree.
And I think, to me, it would be the responsibility of the planning commission to develop that language for the town plan, and we can do it. I guess I'm not as concerned about the delay in getting the public hearing done because we already have an approved town plan. We're not necessarily starting to, I don't know what the timeline is for the bylaws, but I get this sense the planning commission feels rushed. Or are you just kind of done and over it and you just want to?
There's that. But Two Rivers is I would, pressure might be too strong a word, but they're really concerned about the time, and because they're under contract and I don't understand exactly what their concern is, but they are pushing. And their recommendation was to just, if we didn't oppose what some of the things, especially since it came from a select board member, is just to send it to you. It would be the process would be over quicker if you would do what you wanted. And then, and we certainly wouldn't oppose it.
So my understanding is that the planning commission is going to adopt the town plan with minor factual changes and typos and spelling corrections made, non-substantive changes, and submit a list of other areas noted for concern, such as the industrial area expansion in North Heartland, to the select board. So when the select board goes through the town plan process, you all can make those changes if you feel that they are needed and warranted at that time.
Sure.
To take it off of the planning commission's plate, to free them up to do other work.
Right. And are the few shall versus should considered to be minor at this point? There were only a few that were pointed out.
If we had taken some shalls in the absence of any reference to any other part of it, we did correct two, and they were corrections because it ended up with an inconsistency between some language in chapter 9 and chapter 1. So we just made chapter 9 consistent with the language in chapter 1, and so the feeling was that wasn't a substantive change. Okay. But we didn't change any of the other
conceptually, you didn't change the paragraph. Yeah, okay,
There was no policy change.
okay.
So the other question I had is in the, I'll call it in where you're allowing businesses to sort of for growth. It seems that a lot of the areas that you have identified, there's not much vacant land there. There's no real way to grow.
Yeah, unless.
I mean, it would have been interesting to know sort of how many acres are we talking about that we have in these various sites, but it just seemed to me, that it's not very much.
No, there isn't, and the town, the way the town is developed is that there's definitely the areas, the town areas down on the highways, and then miles and miles of, rural roads, so we weren't the history of the town and the feedback we got on the survey was that they, keep rural and try to promote, but you're right, there's not a lot of room. If somebody wanted to put something in town, I don't know where they would put it.
Right, exactly.
But we did put a provision in that we could consider redesignating areas along paved roads. And so we definitely put that in there, that would be something that could be done. And so if the select board wanted to, or directed us to expand the areas of business, the town plan would allow, doesn't cut that off, but it would have to be a redesignation of that area.
Okay.
So my last question is, so when are you formally submitting it to us?
Again, my understanding is we'll vote on Wednesday, our meeting on Wednesday. We send it to Two Rivers at that point, and they will submit a final version to you.
I see.
Because they're the keepers of the.
Okay, they're the keepers of the document. Got it. Okay.
Any questions?
No,
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, Dan, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, moving on to the next item under old business is the town highway and culvert policy. This is something we've been looking at for one or two meetings. If I understand it, I thought it was a merging of two documents, but I'm learning that it's a merge of four documents. So John, will you step us through it? What our hope tonight is that we'll review the suggested changes from last meeting, and we would be not approving it tonight, but moving it along for attorney or town attorney's approval.
Correct. Right, so thanks, Bill. So we've been talking about this for a few meetings now. This is, in essence, a combination of two policies, just for clarity. There are four policies that the town has now. There's a highway ordinance policy, a roads and tree policy, a right-of-way policy, and a class 4 road policy. Because of the way things have been done in the past, some of those are redundant to each other. So this is an effort to clean up some of those, to combine, in essence, the highway ordinance and the road and tree policy. When the board officially adopts this at some point in December, possibly, we would then repeal those other existing ordinances and policies that are then not necessary because they're already covered in this new policy.
Adopt one, repeal four.
Correct. Correct. Cleaning it up.
Do we then repeal these others individually?
I think we would have to, yes.
Yeah.
Yep, I think we would have to. And the only thing that's not included, we would have to create a standalone driveway ordinance, essentially permit process, similar to the construction notification. Very simple, kind of one-page document. Because that was taken out of what's in front of you, because the highway and culvert policy did not feel like the appropriate spots to have permit language for driveways.
Okay.
So from the last meeting, there was just a few points to clean up. One, we did include a sentence at the beginning of section 5, the private road acceptance policy.
Thank you.
To in essence say that the town of Hartland does not accept new private roads unless, the criteria can be met. And again, those criteria set the bar fairly high. So it is, we're saying we don't do it, period.
Okay. John, in that same section 5,
Yep.
Under item 2, we have suggested number of residences or privates. How do we ascertain, or how do we choose a number?
So it's a good question. It came up during the initial conversation, actually, with Bird Hill Road. There was a conversation about if there's X number of houses, and I think Trey's, like, if I recall correctly, it was, I think the number 8 comes to mind as something that you had referenced previously. So I think but that number doesn't seem to exist. It's a number that we can come up with on our own to say, if there's greater than 10 houses on a private road, or a certain number of private businesses, that's the minimum standard before it would be considered for acceptance. And you would have to meet all those other standards.
I have a lot of, I wasn't here at the last meeting. I have a lot more.
The road width standards, the bridge construction standards,
Page 1, page 2.
all those things.
Yeah, I put the page
And who's creating that document?
So he's talking about.
So the road,
I know.
within here, we're talking, there are references to state of Vermont standards for road and bridge construction. And so essentially saying roads and bridges have to meet those standards. Mr. Kennedy.
So you want me to start at the beginning, or do you want me to give you my comments on the private road acceptance?
Sure, let's go there.
Go private road acceptance. So it's a little confusing the way it's written. So in the first sentence, you say, general policy of town of Hartland to not accept private roads, however exceptions will be considered, providing the private road can meet the criteria listed below. And then you have this statement about what the select board has, and then you have criteria.
Yep.
My suggestion would be is that statement about the select board be after the criteria. It's kind of confusing because there's almost like 2 criteria going, two statements going on here, right? So, you understand what I'm trying to say here, people?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so basically to me, it should read the criteria listed below, and then you should have number of homes, connectivity, blah, blah, blah.
So you want to move that above the statement that says the Hartland Selectboard?
This Hartland Select Board should be beneath that.
Yep, okay, I can understand that.
Then you have, under conditions of acceptance, you bring in the term public good, okay? And public good actually in statute has meaning. So I would suggest is under the Hartland Select Board, you should add the Hartland Select Board shall have the sole authority to determine whether the town should accept a private road. The board will determine if the road serves the public good.
Instead of interest.
Just consistent with the other thing. And then you have, if a road serves the public good, is a necessity and convenient to town resident, I think we should add public safety. Add that in there as well, if we want to do it for public safety. So just generally, you state in this, or what's stated in this document is written. And I'm wondering whether we need to say written or email. Because are you considering if somebody objects to something or questions it, we say you have to write to the town manager. Is that via the mail? So I think you should somehow allow for an email. So can I go back to the first?
So I think written is vague enough that it could be written or emailed, to be considered written.
Is that the policy of this town, that we say anything written includes email?
Well, I don't think we have a policy on what is considered official correspondence.
I don't think it is a big deal, just add email.
Right, sure, yes.
No, it's just.
Yeah, exactly. We have to be clear since we have had lawsuits in this area.
Sure. Okay, to that, to begin.
Under planning and implementation, so I'll give it to you. So one of the things I didn't understand is it says known plans for new roads or modifications of existing road will be summarized in the town report? Will you really do that?
I think that if we had plans for new roads, that is something that would be included in a town report, because it's not something that we
So
would do
we
on a
say
whim.
the annual town report, we would put that in the annual town report.
If we are planning to do new roads, I think that would be a substantial enough comment, project that we would.
But we have, or modifications of existing roads. I'm sorry being picky here, but,
Yeah.
well, why can't we just say it will be,
Is this a VLCT template?
Yeah.
Started with?
Yeah, I mean, probably historically, yes. Where,
So there's probably gonna be a lot of stuff in here that's a little generic and
well, I think,
subject to modification. Now, the part that I'm struggling with is the other 4 policies, right? So I feel like we all need to read those 4 policies.
Okay.
And then read this and say, yeah, we're
I'm going to come back to you.
catching everything that we need to catch. Yeah.
Okay, let's, I agree that there's ambiguity with that sentence, no plans versus, is it a new road or is it construction of any road, straightening a road or anything like that? So I think we have to clean that up. Tom, what else do you have on that page?
But I think you guys ought to look at the other policies, because we may be reinventing the wheel here. It might be simple cut and paste
why-
from somewhere else.
why don't we try to see if we can have an agreement on this and not necessarily have, I mean, we can vote on it, but we're not saying right now by voting on this that we're going to reject every other policy. I'm not agreeing to that tonight.
no, that's not the
Oh,
intent.
yeah, no, there's no
so-
vote. There's no vote tonight.
Yeah, so I mean, if we can
That's fine.
maybe get through this. That's just minor.
Are you finished on the first page?
Yeah, I'm done. I have minor typos.
I was like,
I'll
I
just
can
give
see
you
your
the-
minor typos.
I'll give you the
Just
minor
your copy,
typos.
yeah.
Yeah, and I have some typos
Sure.
too. And I have the same question I asked last time, sorry. What's a pent road?
Clyde, do you want to handle this one again?
One that doesn't go anywhere.
No,
It's a temporary road.
it's a temporary road. They were laid out 100 years ago. If you had a road which was down in the gully, which a lot of them were, and would drift full in the winter, they would set aside on private land, they would set a temporary or pent road for use during the winter, say the winter months, and then when the spring arrived and summer conditions, it would go back to being a regular road.
Okay, thank you, Clyde. Okay. Any other observations, feedback? So are folks understanding that we're taking the first step here? Another step toward consolidating these policies, and the next step is actually to get our legal counsel to have their comments. Okay, so there's no need for a motion.
No, I'm not done.
I thought you only had edits.
No,
Okay, go for it, Tom.
on page 2, on the first full sentence, says any written request for a public hearing or triggering of any provision of Vermont statute annotated. That's crazy. Why don't we say appropriate provisions of V.S.A.? It says any. I mean, that's all the laws of the state of Vermont.
Sure, yes. So,
I mean,
you don't want to talk about roads every time?
well, it's just people could bring up some
Yes.
pretty mundane stuff. Under proposed new roads, I think we should have a provision in that all these things that, let's see.
Yep.
That basically, there's nothing in there that says that the cost for whatever we do for the proposed new road has to be paid for by the landowners who are benefiting from the road. You have it in another section.
I was like, I think it is.
You have it under the private one, but not under,
And if you have, it's also under if the road changes within the first year or
yeah,
something.
but nothing under the proposed new road.
Yep.
And it says, under page 3, under the same section, you limit the fees paid by the applicant to the purchase and installation of the road sign or number. And I think it should be much broader than that. I think it should be something, related to the establishment of the new road or something.
And then with the trial period, again, we don't have a cost in there. What is the, coming back?
And, I brought this up before, and we probably won't resolve this night. I still struggle with the whole class 4 town highway. So basically the way this reads is we can actually maintain that road in the summer for emergency vehicles. Or what is, to me, if people want to have a camp or whatever on a class 4 road, that's fine. But to providing the maintenance, which is then going to provide incentive to build on it. I know we got to get emergency vehicles up there, but, I don't know, we just.
So say that again.
So it has in here, Hartland's policy on class 4 town highway is that those class 4 highways with permanent dwellings shall be provided with a minimum of work which will at least assure summer patches for emergency vehicles.
We have one or more class 4 roads today with houses on it.
With houses on it,
Yeah.
correct.
But I think
And we're struggling with that.
but under state statutes, I think we're required to maintain summer.
Okay.
Right. So I think that, to Jim's point, is that we're saying we will make it passable to your house, in the summer, but we're not doing winter maintenance. And that is how, been the long-standing policy for the town and how we deal with class 4 roads, especially seasonally.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, do you mind if I take your copy?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Take her out of winter, yeah.
Great, thanks.
I think we're ready to move on.
So, where are we here then? So I will send the 4 policies that this is replacing, intended to replace, to the board. Do you want to wait to review those before we send this to the attorney and I can incorporate your comments, Tom, prior to sending it to the attorney and then talk about this again? Or do you want to incorporate some of these changes and then have the attorney do the review while you are also concurrently doing your review?
I think from a dollar standpoint, it would be good for us to look at the other policies.
Prior?
To make sure that this encompasses everything the past select boards have put out there.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's probably going to have to be reviewed twice.
Okay. Yeah. We can do that?
I think as long as we can do that in an expeditious manner, because we'll go through this, and then we come back to it in 4 months, everybody's forgotten.
Nope.
You know what I mean? And so it's.
Right. And
Not 4 months.
I assume you'll send the 4 existing
Yep.
policies.
Policies and ordinances, but you will see that this week.
And I thought that was going to be an easy one today. Okay. Okay, then we're moving on to new business. We have, I believe, well, let me restart that. The audit for our town books was completed by the audit firm this past fall. In our packets, we have a copy. We were given it at the last meeting. I believe the lead auditor is available.
Bonnie is online.
Okay, yeah. Great.
Good evening.
Bonnie.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Bonnie, do you want to step us through just a high level? I mean, obviously, I don't want to go through every page of the book.
Yep.
But
I have like a brief summary I can give and then open it up to questions to you guys. It sounds like you guys have had some time to review it, and if you do have questions, we can address those. The audit package itself consists of the town's financial statements and the related footnotes, and there's 2 auditors' reports within that package. The first audit report starts on page 1 of the bigger package that you were given. And it indicates the town's financial statements are fairly presented. They're in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America, which basically common lingo is that's a clean opinion, that's a good opinion. We didn't know anything that's not complying with auditing standards or accounting standards or policies. The second audit report that we issue is at the very back of the package. It's the last 2 pages of that. Starts on page 32. That audit opinion or audit report is over internal control over financial reporting. That area of what we're looking at is your internal controls over how you process your transactions. And that report as well did not identify any material weaknesses in your internal control system, the way that you process things, your checks and balances you have in place, which beginning of your meeting, you approve the warrants. That's one of your internal controls. I select a sample of transactions and walk them through your system and make sure that all of those steps are being done. I didn't identify anything that wasn't being followed in accordance with the policies and controls that you have implemented. The rest of the package is your financial statements. Basically can be broken down into 5 sections. The first set of financial statements is the government-wide financial statements, and those are on pages 8 and 9. That gives you an overview of the town as a whole. It includes all of your funds all together, along with your capital assets, your long-term obligations, pension-related amounts. Gives you a broader overview of everything that the town has going on, except for your private purpose trust fund. The next section of the financial statements is the fund financial statements, and those span from pages 10 to 15. That's where you can see the individual funds broken down. Your major funds are shown there. Starting on page 10, you've got your general fund, your highway fund. There's 3 other funds that are shown as major funds. They're bigger and they have a lot more going on. The second to last column is the other governmental funds. That's all the other funds the town has for reserves or maybe some grant programs or other things you have going on, all combined into one column. Because none of those funds are that big or have that much activity. They're just summarized in a column together. Within those fund financial statements, you also have a budget to actual report for the general fund on page 16 and one for the highway fund on page 17. All of those budget to actual variances should be matching the budget to actual reports that Martin could provide you from your financial system in your building. Once we were done the audit, we compared our balances and made sure that everything matched from what I had as my audited balances, and he entered our proposed adjustments into his system and made sure that NEMRIC is reporting those same numbers as well. So any final year-end reports that he might give you will also line up with these reports. The next section of financial statements is the private purpose trust fund. That's shown on page 18 and 19. Those funds are funds that aren't really the town, so they're not included in that big government-wide overview in the beginning. And the last piece of the financial statements is there's a few supplementary schedules that are shown after all of the footnotes on page 31. And those are some schedules that are required to be reported in accordance with governmental accounting that relate to your participation in the VIII pension plan with the state. I believe we've reached the 10 years that's required to be shown on there. So next year we'll add a new year. We'll drop off the oldest year. We've been working our way up to building that 10-year data. I think we've finally reached that point. And then all of your footnotes fall between pages 20 and 31. That gives some more detail on the bigger items on your balance sheet, significant accounting policies. There is one footnote that I'd like to point out this year. Note 1P on page 24. That footnote is describing a new accounting standard that was implemented this year for June 30, 25. Governmental accounting reworked how they require accrued compensated absences be shown in the financial statements and what types of accrued leave that employees might have eligible to them are recorded as a liability. Those amounts are only recorded on your government-wide financial statements. Those first two big overview pages, they don't hit your general fund, your highway fund. But it's good to know that we've changed how that's reported. So I do think the amount we're showing on those pages did go up a little bit because we rolled in some types of accrued leave time that hasn't been included in there in the past. There's also a footnote, note 9 on page 29. It's only a quick sentence, but it explains what the restatement was in relation to implementing that new standard. It changed your beginning net position. It decreased it a little bit from 7.2 million to 7.1 million to basically we went back to the 6/30/24 amounts and figured out what the leave would have been had we done it the new way last year. Put that effect back into last year so that the effect you see in this year is only the change between the 2 years. Again, that's only on your government-wide financial statements, the big overview. It did not restate your fund balance of the general fund whatsoever. But it's good to know that you guys did implement that this year, and that if someone's comparing last year's report to this year's report, you might see a number or two that's different, or a presentation that's slightly different, or just in general, the numbers for the compensated absences are larger because I think we were adding in sick and comp time as well as the vacation that we always have done in the past. And then there was also a 3-page letter that was hopefully given to you guys as well, along with the big package. That's just a letter written to you guys from us that gives an overview of how the audit went, what the proposed audit adjustments were, hits on significant changes in accounting policies. So it does talk about that implementation of the new accounting standard as well. And then it has a section on significant things that we've discussed with management, just to keep you aware and in the loop of the things that we've been consulting with them on, or areas that we've talked about that could be a change in the future, or best practices on how. I think this year we talked a lot about the library. So we hit on that and described what we've talked about regarding some of the library procedures in that paragraph. Overall, the audit went very smoothly. Martin is always very well prepared. We did not have that many audit adjustments that I proposed to change anything that he had from when he provided me the numbers that I started with for the beginning of the audit. He's always very responsive to the audit requests when I'm there, and definitely keeps us on track and on schedule with getting the audit done when we plan to get it done. So I appreciate that a lot.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
And I think that's pretty much all I have, unless you guys have questions for me, if you've gone through it and looked at it, if there's any specific things you want to ask about.
Well, I have a couple of questions.
Yep.
The first is on page 6.
Page 6.
Right.
Okay.
So the net position.
Yep.
Is 7.9 million.
Yes.
But 2 paragraphs down, there's a net position that's 8.1 million. I was confused on that difference.
That is probably a mistake, because all of those numbers should probably be coming from pages 8 and 9. And the ending number is definitely the 7.9 million. that might have been something that we didn't pick up on when we were going through and checking when we made changes at some point during the draft process.
Okay.
I can get that corrected and get you guys new copies if you'd like them.
Okay. I had one other question on page 11,
Okay.
which is just, basically our fund balance of all funds, right? At the end of the year was 4.37 million.
Yep.
So the question is really, did we have bank statements that back that number up? Like, did that number match what we had in bank and investments at that point in time?
All of the bank statements would be on the previous page in that cash line, the first line on page 10. So the actual cash you had on hand was 4.2 million, plus you have investments of 166,000. That's what you actually have in the bank to support that $4.3 million fund balance.
Okay, so those numbers are real close together.
They're close, and your differences are going to be that you still have tax receivables out there for delinquent taxes.
Yeah.
You have a tiny amount of accounts receivable. And in the deferred inflow section, there's some people that have paid ahead on their taxes, so that would be sitting in your cash, but it's not really revenue until next year.
Okay.
But for the most part, those numbers, if I add those two numbers together, it's only $8,900 off from matching what your fund balance is. So I'd say you're pretty close to having that fund balance fully funded.
Nothing to pay 8,900 mark.
Yeah.
So I have two questions. On page 20, the accrued compensated absences, so that's vacation, sick, and VEMRs?
Not VEMRs, not pension. It's only like time off that employees might take advantage of in the upcoming year or more than 1 year.
Companies are reporting this as a liability.
Yeah, no, I understand that. It just seemed to be a lot.
So on your accrual,
Do we have a limit here?
they're including sick time, vacation time,
Total.
and some of those amounts are capped.
Okay.
You can't carry 2 years, it's capped at 2 years.
Yeah, you guys don't actually have comp time, and we did not include personal time, but sick time and vacation time are what make that up.
Okay.
And the restatement was due to including the sick time. We didn't used to include the sick time.
Okay. And then in your management letter, could you explain briefly the issue with the library reserve fund? I don't quite understand that.
There isn't really an issue with it. But they did, when I was there in your offices working on the audit, a couple of people from the library came and talked with me and wanted to know like best practices on how things get processed that are for the library, who's doing the approving, and how that gets reflected in the town's books with Martin to help coordinate what they're doing over there and how the data gets over to Martin to be recorded. Because they do have their separate trustees, but it is still under the purview of the town, and it is in your general fund. So we talked about that a lot. The reserve fund itself, I think it was that they wanted to redirect all of the reserve had been used at one point, and that was approved by the voters. So now that there's money that they want to put back into the reserve, it should probably be voted on again to reestablish that fund, because it was established, it was funded, and then it was used. It's been closed for several years. About 3 years, I think. There was no activity and the balances were zero, and now there's available surpluses that wanted to go in there. So just ratifying the use of the fund and then directing what it can be used for in the future, so that when somebody wants to use part of the reserve for new books versus new roof, there's a clear indication of what reserve funds can be used for and how they're.
But isn't there another library, well, there's a library program fund? What's the difference?
I want to clarify.
Where are you looking, Jim?
On page 16, well, actually, maybe I'm on the wrong spot.
So, if I understand you correctly, to reestablish the library reserve fund, then there has to be an article in town meeting to reestablish that. And within that article, we can state the purposes of the fund?
Yes. Yep. If you look back at the 2001 annual meeting, you'll see the original article that was there that the voters approved to establish the first library reserve fund.
But, so
That fund that approved ended up being
balance.
closed. What was that?
The page 28 says we have a $12,000 balance in the library reserve fund and another library fundraising fund with 7,900.
No, 24,000.
So within that footnote about the fund balances, the library fundraising is specific donors that have made donations to the library for something through their campaign that they do every year to do fundraising. Those are outside monies. It's not tax dollars that was raised. That's donations that have come in that they've accumulated towards the library. The reserve itself was where they wanted to put their departmental surplus to be able to use it in a future year.
Okay.
And they used a fund that had been previously established, used up and closed, and was inactive for 3 years, and then wanted to put that departmental surplus in there.
Right. So historically,
ratify the fund by the voters that it can be that can be done, and that because the voters could say no, and then that surplus should be going back to the general fund.
right, it should be the library reserve fund, I believe, was initially established to cover any overages from the library, from their appropriated amount at the beginning of the fiscal, at the beginning of the year.
So I guess my confusion is, I thought I heard the fund was closed, but I see a fund with $24,000.
So not 24,000,
That's not the reserve fund.
12,347. The library fundraising has 24,441. The library reserve
All right, so I'm off by a line.
is 12,347.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, but it's
So they
not.
use the fund the way that it has been used in the past, without realizing, because there had been no activity and it was technically closed in 2022, that maybe they thought they could just reopen the fund, when I really think the voters should be aware that there's a departmental surplus there and make sure that they want to continue with that practice.
12,000 is basically in limbo until there's a vote.
Yeah.
Okay.
It can stay recorded the way it is now. If the voters don't approve it, then during FY26, because your next town meeting would happen in March, a transfer could be done back from the reserve back to the general fund to undo what was done last year if the voters don't approve it.
So the money was swept in last year.
Last year, there was realized savings due to a loss of a position at the library, a staff member. So they came in with an overage, which I believe is at $12,000.
Okay.
Historically, they have overspent their budget, and the town general fund has covered that overage because the library reserve fund was zero.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the 12 came back last year.
Yeah, it appeared, all of that 12,000 appeared in 25.
Okay.
So the article.
So you only have to tell me 3 times before I finally get it.
So the article at town meeting would be to essentially reestablish library reserve fund and put a finer point on its intended purpose and use.
Okay.
Yeah.
Plan.
Bonnie, in your opening comments, I think you answered my question. On page 32 and 33, you talk about the internal controls.
Yeah.
I think I found after I read it that you were legally saying you really didn't check anything with internal controls, but then at the end you sort of say you did check them. So is it just a matter of legalese that I'm getting kind of
Yeah, the audit opinion itself, it's standard boilerplate language from the AICPA that we use to give you either an opinion that did not find any material weaknesses, or one that will identify significant deficiencies or material weaknesses, or some variation of some but not all of either of those two categories. We also, if we found any instances of fraud, abuse, or compliance issues, it would also go in this report and be further modified. But in the second section, the third paragraph is pretty much like the key sentence that you want to look at. We don't look at every single thing, but we test the controls to make sure they're working.
Okay.
And our tests were designed to identify deficiencies in your controls that we've identified. We did not identify any material weaknesses. It doesn't mean there isn't one that we just didn't see, but that's like the key paragraph that's outlining that we didn't, like if I had chosen a bunch of transactions and I kept finding warrants that weren't signed, or invoices that weren't approved, or checks that weren't signed by the right person, that type of stuff, then that paragraph would be worded completely differently. And we would then have an additional page of this report with our list of findings, and then go into more detail of what we did find.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Bonnie, again, thank you. Thank you to the firm.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you next year.
Yes, we will. I already have our date scheduled with Martin, so I'll see you next summer.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Nina is here to talk to us about the Hartland Farmers Market and a request. Please.
Hi, I'm Scherer. I'm a new board member for the Farmers Market, and we are working to bring back the winter markets to support the community. We'd like to do it once a month, January through April here, as it's a very nice central location, nice and open, and I've heard in years past it's been really successful, and being in the center of town, we hope to get a lot of traffic. So we are requesting that the rental fee be waived if possible.
Right. And Nina, is it one market or two this year?
4. We want to do once a month.
Okay.
Just going to January through April.
Okay, great. Comments?
So it's a $25 for a nonprofit, the local organization, be a $25 rental fee per occurrence. Okay. So we're talking about $100, waiving $100. They would still be required to provide the refundable deposit and the certificate of insurance.
And that's the key thing, was the insurance.
Right.
So you guys have that.
Yeah, it's my understanding we'll be able to.
Okay. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Is that in the policy, or is this an exception to the policy?
Which, Jim?
Is requiring those two things in the rental agreement?
No, doing the waiver. Is there a waiver for?
There is not a waiver. We did waive the fee for the community breakfasts.
Okay.
So this is, I asked Nina, had reached out, I said, this is not up to me, it's up to the select board if you wanted to come and
Right.
make the argument.
Right. I do feel this is a community event, my hope is that there'll be additional interest, which will spill over to the summer market, so that we can continue to have a meeting place and markets in town.
I'll make a motion that we waive the $100 fee for this.
25. Was it $100?
It's $25 per occurrence.
4 months.
4 months.
Okay.
25 times 4.
So I have to ask just one question, and I am not the spoiler here, okay? Because I totally want this to happen, but what happens when everyone else comes and asks to have the fee waived as well? And what about the Girl Scouts?
Listen, all right, how long are we going to talk about their cookies?
Possibly.
Long.
Turn the Girl Scouts down and not let them in the building.
We're going to cover that in executive session at the end of the
Forgive us, there's an inside joke about Tom playing hardball with the Girl Scouts, so we're trying to.
Listen, it's part of my job.
Who does that?
Good question.
Is it gonna be, because I mean, I'd be willing to personally donate some money to help waive the
Right.
fee. If this is gonna cause a problem for other people who are gonna be using the facility.
So I don't have an answer. We don't have a waiver. There's no waiver language in the rental agreement. I think that we lowered the fee last year to make it more accommodating to local organizations who wanted to do things like this. When the community breakfast came, the select board did authorize waiving the fee for them because of the type and nature of the event. You know, arguably, I think the farmers market falls into the same kind of category as the community breakfast. That doesn't answer your question, but.
Did Clyde make a motion?
Have a motion, we
I'll
don't have a
second
second. Okay.
No. I was gonna say, they don't pay a fee down at the library, but they're outside. But it's still town property. Right?
I'm sorry, what?
They don't pay a fee down at the library, even though they're outside, it's still town property.
Farmers market.
Yeah.
Correct. And the difference being that like this is a non-profit. I mean, like, so if somebody decides to have a wedding here, they pay the fee.
They pay a larger fee.
Is this a profit?
I don't think, my understanding, we do not officially have nonprofit status, not a 501c3. As far as I know, I can find that out officially though.
Okay.
Let's admit, the
But-
policy probably needs to be reconsidered.
Let's just change that policy down the road here. Please let these
I'm
people
not
do
quite
this.
sure what we gain by charging $25.
I don't think we get anything.
But anyway, except a lot of hot air in this
Except a
room.
lot of people that are gonna complain because somebody got a chance to get it for free and other people didn't. So
Okay.
I think the policy should be changed down the road.
Okay,
All right.
so we have a motion, we have it seconded, is there any more discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Make sure Trace gets a cookie or something.
I am not gonna be that guy that turned down.
Write everyone's name down.
You know, the tomato plants at the garden club sold me after you did squashed it, none of them grew. You know?
To do my job.
You do it well, John.
But we like to throw curveballs.
Okay, moving on, we actually have two items that are related. We have a clarification of the town appropriation policy, and then we have with us tonight to discuss the fire department and rescue squad appropriations, representatives from both of those entities. John, you want to step us through the appropriation policy?
Sure. So this is a VLCT model appropriation policy. It has been the longstanding practice of the town to require exactly what is written here in this appropriation policy, to say if you're resubmitting the same request year after year, you don't have to submit signatures 47 days in advance with 5% of the voters. It does explicitly say that the appropriation policy is applicable only to social service agencies in the applicability section. The second paragraph, you'll see that it does not apply to town membership organizations such as the League of Cities and Towns, Two Rivers, the Solid Waste District. We also included the Hartland Volunteer Fire Department and the Volunteer Rescue Squad. So this policy just essentially says what has been the longstanding policy for the town, period.
Okay.
One question on page 2.
Yes.
Is 24 hours enough for the clerk to turn around a petition?
What is that?
It says, check. petitions submitted prior to the deadline but not containing the required number of signatures shall be returned to the Hartland Town Clerk within 24 hours of receipt, stating in writing on why the petition, why it cannot be accepted.
So you get 24 hours to validate whatever it is.
And if they don't have, if they're not voters of the town, or they're
We're
not.
checking the names.
Yes, we're checking the names, if there's any requirements, we give it back and we say.
But is 24 hours too tight a deadline for you to do that? You get the petition, you've got to have it turned back in 24 hours.
We're usually checking it right then and there, as soon as we get it.
Okay.
It would be really extenuating circumstances that it would be enough. So yes.
So the next part of that, so I submit my petition, deficiencies are found, but now I only have 48 hours to resubmit it. What if I do this in September? I still only have 48 hours to resubmit the thing?
Or the filing deadline.
Or the filing deadline, whichever
No
is
later
later.
than 48 hours after.
Second half of that sentence.
Or the filing. Okay. And then if you happen to be a procrastinator and you don't have 24 hours, you're kind of out of luck.
It behooves you to plan ahead.
Got it. All right.
Yes.
So then my other question is that the letter to the select board postmark no later than the first Friday in November, which we're right up against that deadline.
This is, again, and I checked with staff upstairs, this has always been the longstanding policy. And
First Friday.
in November. Right, we are right up against it, yeah. But we've been receiving them for months.
Somebody has to look after second.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, so we're looking for a motion.
A motion.
Question about your first Friday in November, or whatever. Doesn't the state statute say that if a petition is presented to the select board prior to 47 days before town meeting, it must be considered?
That's in there.
Which would mean, so first Friday in November is not 47
This
days.
is for
Appropriation.
two different things. It's, the petition has the 47 days. This is notification that you want to continue the next year.
Thanks. You only need a petition if you are changing your appropriation request.
Change the amount.
Which they could bring in 47 days ahead.
Right, but so if Windsor County Mentors wants to have the same request, all they need to do is submit a letter by the first Friday in November. And that goes in the town report. In the budget.
I'll make a motion that we approve the town of Hartland appropriation policy.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Trace. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Just a-
Motion passes. So you will date this today and.
It's right in front of Mr. Kennedy. It will be coming down the line for signature.
Okay. And then moving on to, is item 5?
Yep, so item 5, so
relative?
yeah, so John Sanders, this all started this whole conversation started because John reached out, and I think last year as well, expressed some dismay with having to collect signatures to request a raise in their appropriation. Is that correct, John?
Yeah, we're trying to keep our business, so to speak, afloat, and cost of doing business is not staying level. So we're trying to just keep up with an increasing number of calls and an increasing number of volunteers and operating budget that can support that, which level funding is just not a smart decision. So petitioning the town every year is effortful for us. It's a lot of signatures, and we get a lot of comments back from the townspeople that are kind of embarrassing, like, why why do we have to sign this? What are we gonna get rid of the fire department kind of comments? And, so we just, it's a little humiliating to stand out there and get berated by the town that supports us so well. So I'm just looking to see, there have been several years where we have come to the select board, and this is, I think, what John and I was talking about doing, just come to the select board and describe to you why we're looking to increase our budget and have a draft budget, which I happen to have a copy with me now. If we look at it as a working budget, have a conversation about what it is, why we need to up some things and maybe drop some others, and sort of where we land without being perceived as trying to just take money from that.
Right. And John, you're speaking for the rescue squad as well.
Yeah, so I was not able to connect with Alan on this. My recollection of the rescue squad is they have largely been level funded for a long period of time, and I don't have the data.
They do.
But it's something like 14.5 or 18.5.
Yep.
And the fire department basically covers a lot of their expenses. So like the building insurance and I think we cover most of their, we do almost everything we cover for them. They have a lot of recurring expenses, you know, keeping supplies in the cabinet. I'm not belittling them. There's a lot of good work that they do, but they have one truck and one truck that needs to be restocked with supplies. It's much more restrictive every year, but they too, I think, are owed the Downtree Medical is cost ludicrous amounts of money for medical equipment every time you get a new set of AED pads or something like that, and it's up every year. So I think they too deserve the opportunity to come to the select board and talk about why they want to do what they want to do with their budget.
I think the policy we just signed opens that door. You no longer have to get petitions.
You don't have to do it.
Right.
It does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now it's intent, yeah. So, right. So then I think what the plan would be is probably the first meeting in December, because your budget is still very much in draft form, from my understanding.
Yeah, I'm here and prepared to talk to it if you want, but I don't want to drag this on. And I also have one other topic I'd bring up just to keep you guys informed of new apparatus that we're considering.
Right.
I think we should wait.
Yeah, because we haven't really done the detail. I looked at the line item today and I saw a small increase, but, you know, I think when we've got it, the purpose of our budget discussion is begin the discussion tonight and understand what the parameters are and then dive into it.
Our draft, just big picture, our draft budget is a 10% increase over what it was last year.
Okay.
And it's primarily to address a dire need for more turnout gear because our membership is up from 30 responders to almost 42.
That's great.
Wow.
It is a wonderful thing, and we should be very proud of that and continue to support us. So we can
Like how,
It's a
how,
wonderfully expensive thing.
Yeah.
how did that happen?
Yeah, what are you doing? Cookies? What is it?
I heard that the chief is just amazing.
Wait, didn't the membership go up when you announced that you might be retiring?
That also.
Ouch. Okay.
And then I just had one point of like awareness. The fire department is actively looking kind of.
Yeah, please. Yeah, sorry. Thank you.
So since 2022 at town meeting, we have been talking about the next two apparatus that need to be replaced are engine 2 and tanker 1, which for argument's sake, we'll say they're both at station 2, even though we rotate our tankers back and forth so that they get ride time on them. But those are our two oldest apparatus, and I think, I don't have the numbers exactly. Engine 2 we received as a demo unit. We put a lot of work into it. It's roadworthy, and it's probably got another 5+ years on it. But it is it's at like between 20 and 22 years of life with Hartland. And then our tanker 1, the body on tanker 1 is on its 3rd chassis. And the tanker, the body Larry Dingy did, and it's getting tired. The chassis is doing okay. But what we're looking to do is look for a combination vehicle, we call it a pumper tanker, that would carry the same amount of water as a tanker, but have a pump capacity to be a fire engine. And it could serve in either capacity. And this is a trend we're seeing in basically all the towns around us, is every time they buy a tanker, they get it upfitted so it could also be a fire truck. And then it gives us the same redundancy that we have now with one less vehicle in the fleet, which is an overall cost savings down the road. So we have, just last week, we put a letter out of like requirements for this to 5 agencies. And we are just waiting to get those to come back. We have money in the capital reserve fund on the order of $285,000 by memory. And a new fire truck is, I don't want to scare you, but it's probably twice that. And so we were waiting to get bids back so we can come to you more informed. And we asked for those bids to come back by January 1st.
Yep.
And we also just want to be wise and look at used opportunities on the market and not surprise the select board if we were like, that's the one that'll do everything and it's only 5 years old, we should get that one.
Right. So I asked John to come to kind of lay this out. So there's $219,000 in the fire reserve fund.
What's the rest of it?
Martin.
We got 68,000 going in this year.
And 68,000 goes in annually. So I think the select board has the authority to authorize the expenditures from the fire reserve fund. So knowing that they are kind of semi-actively looking for used apparatus.
Is that true? We have the authority?
I believe that I should double check those.
Yeah, that was the change we did, I think 3 years ago at town meeting.
The board, so it doesn't need full voter approval anymore.
Okay.
So I asked John to come to kind of outline this so that if something comes up, we have the ability, if with your kind of tangential approval, to start that process. So you're not coming in, John's not coming in to a future meeting to say, hey, I need a check for $180,000 today, right? Just to put it on your radar. Right. I'm being optimistic.
But you get 60,000 going in.
68.
60, and another 68 going in.
And 68 goes in annually.
Yeah.
So we got roughly 290.
Right.
But the lead time must be.
If we go with a new truck, we are hearing 3 years, but it's changing. And that's why we're putting this bid out, because we want to be informed.
Right, so there's another 2 years of 68 that's going to go on top of that.
Right, it's an annual allocation. So even if we spent all of it, there's going to be 140 back in there within 2 years.
Do the trucks have any value for resale?
That's another thing we're looking into, but I don't have an answer for you yet. It's been underwhelming in the past.
Sure.
I think we got more money for that old forestry truck than we will ever see for a big fire truck. It's like excavators. The bigger they are, the less expensive they are on the used truck.
So if you go with a combo truck, is it a bigger truck? Or
The criteria is it has to fit in the North Hartland Fire Station.
yeah.
Okay, John, thank you for coming, and John, thank you for the two of you getting ready to alert us that this is on the horizon. So good, and I'm glad we have that new appropriation policy to alleviate that issue.
John, are you here just to listen, or do you have a question for us? Or just listen? Okay.
Okay. Good, thank you.
One last comment, if we're doing budgets, is it time to raise the amount that we put into the reserve?
Right, so that's a question.
68.
That's a good idea.
That's it. It's a good question because it's been pretty static for a couple of years now. Yeah, great.
Okay, that feels like a good prelude into our 2027 budget overview this evening. In our packets, we have multiple pages, and we have both Martin as well as John to step us through what the target is.
Great. So as you have in front of you the budget that has the library's budget estimated, the highway's budget estimated, the rec department's budget estimated, and then Martin and I have gone through the general fund and made some minor modifications here and there. This also has a 3.28% increase. That's been the 8-month consumer price index average.
Say it again.
3.28%. So the data wasn't released in September.
Is that the Northeast?
That's the Northeast region 8-month average. Yep. So through August. So that's been included. As a whole, right now, with all of those numbers kind of submitted, we're looking at a 4.9% increase. Again, if 3.28% is essentially inflation, that's about a 1.5% budget increase over last year, or just under. If we go through the general fund, just highlighting some of the significant changes, you'll see a reduction in health insurance, and that's from the vote to move from an elected board of listers to an appointed assessor. So we lost a full-time position there, so that there was a savings in health insurance costs there.
Is health insurance overall going up significantly?
Health insurance is going up, but not significantly for the plan that we have.
You have MVP?
We do have MVP. Yeah. So again, in the general fund, there was just minor changes. Some of it is we anticipate seeing some changes. We've put a heat pump in at the Historical Society. We don't know what that's going to mean for their electricity or their fuel bill, so we kept those numbers the same, knowing that those aren't going to be accurate for the next year. They should see a big reduction in fuel consumption, but perhaps an increase in electricity. We just need to wait to see what that looks like. But Jim, to your earlier question about kind of the fire department fund, we also have been talking about a capital plan, which we'll talk about again at the next meeting. Right now, there's a kind of $8,000, I believe, in the rec center and the activity center in Damon Hall in terms of maintenance and upkeep. We know that that's probably insufficient for the amount of work that is needed at each building on an annual basis. So do we want to look at, increasing that amount? One of the things I'm working on doing is trying to connect the local contractor to come in and give us some estimates for what things might cost moving forward.
But we have an engineering study on Damon Hall and the rec center.
We have an architecture report for Damon Hall and the rec center, which does present some costs, but things like the stairs, those are costs from 2 or 3 years ago now at this point.
But we also have the uncovered balance,
correct,
some of which is supposed to be doing that maintenance.
Correct.
Damon Hall and the rec center.
Correct. Right. Yeah. And then just kind of the big change in the highway.
So John, just on the general fund expense, it looks like page 1 of 1, it's not high.
Say that again?
Like page 1 of 1, the general fund overview, expenses, looks like a 0.01% increase.
Right, so the general fund is essentially down or level funded.
Because we
realized some savings in health insurance. Right.
Okay.
The highway fund is actually up 13%.
But it's a smaller fund.
Correct.
Sticking with the general fund for a moment. You talked about using consultants from NIMRIC to assist the listers. Where is that?
In the listers budget, you will see a consultant. So on page 2 of 16, you'll see consulting services under listers about halfway down the sheet. There's a budget in there for $10,250 for consulting services.
I didn't look far enough to the. Okay.
I'm sorry, how much?
$10,250. That does include the work that Doug Linnell has been doing for us and any anticipated work that we would use with NIMRIC, as next spring.
That's enough.
We anticipated being enough. The work that Doug has been doing on the tax map is largely kind of coming to completion. So there may be a lull there and then an increase again in late winter and spring as we're getting the grand list ready. Again, we're going into this like a little bit, here's our best guess. We don't exactly know what it's gonna look like.
It's fairly minor, but didn't we say we were going to provide administrative support to the planning commission? They were gonna have a minute taker or something like that?
That conversation never really went anywhere,
Okay.
but yes, but.
I just want to recognize that we had talked about that.
We had talked about it.
And now it's just,
And we made the offer to them.
we had made the offer.
Correct.
Okay.
Under the activity center, we don't have any of those abatement issues with the findings from the reports.
So again, all of that work would be covered under the existing kind of $8,000 repair line that's in the activity center. The question then is that sufficient?
Well, the work's going to be done in this fiscal year, not in 27.
It will probably span multiple fiscal years.
A lot of it will be done.
Yeah.
6:30, okay, fiscal user.
You guys,
So what's our process? So we're going to be bringing in the various.
Tom, hold on.
So the process
You
then.
guys, Seth down there? Okay.
So the process then would be, here's an overview of it. At the next meeting, we would invite Tracy, John Leonard, and BJ in to come and present their budgets to you, and they can explain their budget requests and answer questions as relates specifically to their budget. First meeting in December would be the fire department, conservation commission, anybody else who may want to, Bob, waterwork, on those kind of one-off lines in the budget.
And are we going to be able to get detail from these folks as far as what makes up their budget?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because some of the budget, I'm not going to pick on them, but
Yeah.
the library's budget is up substantially, and I'm just curious what's in there.
Right, so that's a great question.
Last year, you should give us some kind of a report, an overview of the library.
Yeah, Becca Warren did, Becca and Tracy.
But last year was more of a, here's where libraries are going for services, not really hard numbers, if I recall. The report they gave us last year was more service-oriented, not budget-oriented. Yep.
But the expectation will be at the next meeting that they can all come in, Tracy, John, BJ, discuss and defend the budget as presented to us. Because what's been included here is what they presented. We didn't change anything that they gave us at all.
What about the ones that county sheriff? Should we be planning an increase?
So the Windsor County Sheriff and I met earlier, not this week, today's Monday, last week. And they are recommending that at a minimum, we go up to 40 hours a week in terms of coverage.
But they're not doing an hourly increase?
They're not doing an hourly increase. Based on the feedback in the conversation, in an ideal world, the sheriff believes that we could use 7-day week coverage at 8 hours a day, so 56 total hours per week. That moves their budget requests up to $218,000.
We just looked at 32 hours.
Right now they're at 32, and again we have 10 hours a week with the Vermont State Police, and we have the constable still.
And what are we actually getting out of the state police these days? Are they around the fight, or is it all over the place?
Various, super variable, right? Some months they're hitting that mark. Some months I think we might go months before we see a bill. And the constable is kind of pretty consistent, much like the sheriff. So, we could look at moving it up to, incrementally moving it and stepping it up to 40 hours a week, reviewing that again next year to see if we want to go to 56. An additional 8 hours a week is much more palatable from a budget perspective than what would in essence be an $80,000 jump in policing services.
About 10 grand if we go there.
Oh, right. An extra $10,000, in the budget if we go to 40 hours a week with the sheriff's office.
I think that they've shown that it's absolutely necessary.
Correct.
And that they have made a lot more stops, arrests, like double.
Yeah.
And there's more needed.
Right, exactly. And it was very evident in, in the work that he's done and the reports that he's provided, right, that there is this need.
Very evident.
Right. And I would also argue that they've done a very good job of kind of mediating where Hartland wanted to be in terms of community policing. I know they had 2 of them here on Friday night handing out candy at trick or treating. So
that's good.
Good PR.
Exactly.
So John, you were about to talk about the highway fund?
So the highway fund is up again significantly, primarily due to the fact that there's an added position in there, a new full-time staff member for the highway department. And when we put that number in, we include a person with a family plan at the highest level of insurance that we can offer. So it's the most expensive person that we could possibly add, right? Recognizing that, because if they are a single person and they choose a less expensive insurance plan, we could see $10,000 to $15,000 or $20,000 in reduction in insurance costs there.
Back that up.
We don't know.
You back that up. Tell me, is this person hired? Are you looking to hire a person?
We're looking to.
You're looking to hire another person into the budget?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
There has historically been 6 people in the Hartland Highway Department.
Yes.
They've been working with 5. It does present some, kind of logistical challenges, 5 people versus 6 people in terms of like the number of crews that can go out and get things done over the course of a day. I think, they're doing a fantastic job with the resources they have available to them. And I think we've seen a kind of an upturn in terms of, road maintenance and kind of being a little bit ahead of the curve here. And this would just help to further that along. But that's what's driving the big increase in the highway fund.
So you said the percent increase in highways around 10?
I think it's like 12.5 or 13.
So what's the total between the two?
4.862. So 4.9. So that essentially amounts to about a $46.
But if we increase the sheriff and increase fire department trucks, we'll probably hit 5%.
We're at 5%. Yeah, it's possible. There's, areas that I think can be looked at in terms of cost savings. But again, this is as it was presented to us from those individual folks.
Okay.
Again, Martin and I did some of the kind of easy trimming along the edges, but there's probably more savings to be realized if we wanted to go that route. As it stands, it's about a $46 increase per $100,000 of assessed value.
So in the summer labor line item, does that include more than just the additional person? It just seems to be between summer and winter labor, it's quite an increase in labor costs.
Right here.
Here's summer
labor.
So we're
from 154 to 222.
So your actuals in 25 were 175, and now you're going up to 222, and your actuals in winter labor for 25 is 134, and you're going up to 161. So, and then you have overtime in there as well.
That's the new person. That's the new person.
That's expensive.
Yeah, that's $26 an hour. And the insurance shows up top and the administration.
No, I saw the insurance, yeah. Okay.
It's not budget related, but there is still the discussion on a potential bond for the Quechee Road, which has an impact on the budget process as well.
Right.
It's not budget related because you wouldn't make a payment in fiscal year 27.
Correct. And it's not operating expenses. Right.
But the bond payment comes out of the general fund.
Correct.
Long term.
And FY28 it would, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Long term. And so just for the sake of conversation, a $2 million bond over 20 years raises that $46 per $100,000 of assessed value to about $85 per $100,000 of assessed value. That's a $2 million bond.
Yeah. It would double our tax.
Essentially doubles it.
But
The highway side. The highway and the general fund side, not the school side.
Right, that's just, yeah.
So the number's not making sense to me. What's your total highway budget?
The total highway budget?
Yeah.
$1.8 million.
So about 2 million. So if you do a $2 million bond, you can't double your tax rate because you're spreading that bond payment out over 20 years.
$177,000 for the first year.
Right, which is it's not double. But I thought I heard you say it went from
46 to 85.
That's
in essence.
roughly double.
Roughly double, yeah.
But it's not. It's going from 1.8 some odd million to 2.1 some odd million.
Right.
So that number doesn't make sense to me.
We can.
I'll double check the numbers.
Yeah, I would check that. I agree with you.
How stable are the revenues that are mentioned from the state? Do we have any idea what those are?
We haven't heard anything about them becoming, less available. So, relatively stable. And again, we saw in the audit, sticking on the Quechee Road for a second, we do have some available, kind of cash reserves we could use to if we wanted to take out a $2 million bond, we have additional reserves we could use to help kind of do more work there.
But the recommendation in the capital plan that came out was, with the $6 million project, the recommendation was a $4 million bond.
Correct.
So again, you got to finish the capital plan, know where to spend the money on, and make a decision. Because if you try to do it twice, we need to. 3 years later, we need another 2. It's probably not going to go well.
Right. I don't disagree, and I think I've expressed my desire that this is a one-time project. However, we don't know what's coming from the school, so trying to keep the budget in line with
We'll suffer with that problem for the next decade. And the road can't wait a decade.
It cannot. We've done sufficient paving over the past couple of years that, it's possible that we could take a couple of years off from paving and use our whole paving budget to put that into the Quechee Road work.
Right, but that gets you from 4 to 6 million, not from
2 to 6. I agree. I think the bond has an impact on the budget discussion, though, as a whole.
Okay. Any additional discussion tonight on the budget? Okay.
So again, it's relatively straightforward. If you look at it as a whole, it's about a 1.5% increase as presented. Not accounting for inflation, or accounting for inflation.
Highway in general together.
Correct.
Okay, let's move on then to the town manager update.
Great. So just today, we received the preliminary design for the Jennyville Road and Densmore Hill Culvert. There's some, as expected, there's some design challenges and site challenges there. So I'll be meeting with the engineer later this week to kind of go over those. Again, this is just a design. We're still kind of looking for funding so that, we'll have the design and be ready to go once we can find funding for that project. If you came down the Quechee Road, you'll see that they've been out working, doing some ditch cleanup. They anticipate being done this week with that. We'll be spreading some mulch hay. Nothing's going to grow this time of year, but that will help to prevent erosion come spring melt.
Did they work on any culverts while
They did not do any culvert work. Nope, that was never a part of the original plan. I think if we can now go in and coordinate with the fire department to clean some of those culverts out, now that they've been, the inlets and outlets have been cleaned out, that's kind of phase 2 of this project. We anticipate beginning to see a little bit of winter weather, so the highway crew will be hauling sand and refilling the sand pile because it was essentially fully depleted at the end of last year. So you'll see a lot of trucks coming through Four Corners in the coming weeks. I spoke with Dan Moranci, the Vermont Old Cemeteries Association work that was presented on a few meetings ago. They reached back out to Dan and said they had a proposal for June of 2026, and they're proposing work at the center of town cemetery, and Dan will coordinate that work with VOCA, the Vermont Old Cemeteries. There's no date. There's no firm date set. They said any date but June 27th. my feedback to Dan was, I think that any other Saturday that month would be sufficient, but, so unless barring any feedback from anybody on the board, we'll move forward with setting a date with Dan and the VOCA group.
That's great.
We talked about the planning commission in the town plan process. So that's all set. We're moving forward with a lease with the Windsor Early Childhood Education Center for the Four Corners building, probably starting on January 1st. We talked about this last meeting, they don't have any concerns with the lease as presented with the language regarding changing an annual adjustment to the rent based on taxes. And they do want to do sticking with that kind of June 30th, so an initial lease of 42 months. So January 1 to June 30th, June 30, 3 years later. We just talked about a bond and just the very specific timeline. So if there's a desire to do a bond, we need to kind of get that going. It would be my recommendation that if we do a bond, we would put it on, do it by Australian ballot. And so John can coordinate that with LHS. I think if we're taking out,
remember how we did the Three Corners bond. Was it Australian ballot?
Yeah, it has to be for a bond.
Has to be for a bond?
Yep.
Well, we could introduce the concept at town meeting and vote on it in November.
Yeah, we do
because of the general election then. So.
Right, and there's the fall bond market too. Yeah, and that would give us.
I don't think there'll be enough time for the fall bond market, because it's usually due.
Well, you'll also have state primary in August.
Yes, yep.
Which could be.
That would work.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. Wouldn't the bond have to be done in March? The vote be done in March?
I think we present, Tom, I think you were saying present the idea of the bond and have a discussion at town meeting.
We already kicked it down the road a full year. Now we're saying we're going to kick it down the road another full year.
Because we also said we were going to do a bunch of outreach, and we haven't. It's now November. Between the town plan, getting the budget out, I just don't see us having the time. So we're basically going to ask the voters to vote on a bond without giving them much explanation, except for 15 or 20 minutes at a town meeting. I personally don't think that's great.
But 3 years down the road, the costs are going to be different. We don't.
Well,
we're going to do rework.
But if they vote it down, then we're really in trouble.
Right. And we also have bylaws that are going to be taking our time as well.
So
I mean, I'm just throwing that out. I don't know what people want to do on it, but
we've got an engineering report. But I don't know, how old is it now? Is it a 2-year-old report, 1-year-old?
18 months, yeah.
Yeah. How long do we go on a road that's deteriorating before we assume a liability because we haven't done the repair work?
So if we don't do it at town meeting, we're still going to have time at a later date to have the voters vote on it and put it in the 28 budget.
I guess my question is a little different. If we knew, right, if we've known for 18 months that we got a road that needs serious work, and that's going to be another 18 months before we're shovel ready, right? Are we creating a situation where if somebody gets hurt on that road, we have a liability to the town?
But what's our alternative? What are you suggesting we do?
I'm suggesting last year we should put it up for a vote.
Right. Well,
Okay, but
we
that was last year.
We had a plan to do it this year. We ought to get moving and get it done.
I don't think we have time.
But again, the voters will not have the opportunity. We won't be able
It
to.
was the same excuse we used last year.
Jim, I agree with you in this frustration on all our parts. We need 6.1 million, not 2 million. So there's a gap right there, so I think we need to not drop the ball and get going so that we have a presentation at town meeting and we look at one of the 2 general elections that are coming up to put it on the ballot. That part.
Do we need The question is, I think, we could talk about it at town meeting and have it on the ballot at the same time. How much is any amount of public outreach going to really change the concept of taking out a $6 million bond? But I don't know, what I don't know is that if we do it in March, the project will still not be shovel ready, likely, but, you know, given the size and scope of that project, we're not going to get a contractor lined up by, you know, April or May of that year. So we're still talking 27. So there's no, at that point, there's no harm in delaying until the primary, which still gives us the same amount of lead time to get a contractor lined up.
Can you re-explain a couple things? So if we brought it up at the town meeting, would we be able to take a vote at a later date during the summertime?
Yes.
Okay, so if we at least put it out there that this is what's happening and this is what it's going to cost and this is the direction we're looking at going in, the people that are there will be covered, people will be notified. And then if it takes us a few more months to come up with a date to take a vote on it, we could start just like trying to work on that specifically at every meeting. So maybe there's a happy medium here.
Well, and also I think we need to do some scenario-based stuff is, here's how much your tax is going up at 2 million, here's how much they're going up at 4, here's how much they're going up at 6. And, you know, right now so Jim and I disagree, you know, respectfully, as far as how much you're saying our taxes are going to go up. But I'm certainly in no position right now to say I would support a $6 million bond.
No.
You know, and so.
But something in the worst case sounds like it's 4.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, I think also, you know, we need to have discussions with the school board and talk to them. I mean, it's, you know, we're just really being held back due to the size of our school budget.
It's true.
Okay.
But some of their budget is out of their control.
I get that. I was a school board chair. I know all about it. All I'm just trying to say is you know, we have some significant needs.
Right.
And so how do we, and we're not saying we're not going to tell the school board how to budget. But,
no, nor can we be held back in taking care of these kind of long-standing projects because of what concerns.
And we've had this discussion before,
right.
so.
I think they should be giving us some student statistics, some numbers, census numbers.
Okay, let's not.
I know, but I'm just saying, also, but hold on for 1 second. So, like, the rec department is under our budget, okay?
Yeah.
And that budget has been climbing, but the number of students, I want to know, how many more students are they affecting than they were 10 years ago? Because I don't think that it's up. I think it's down by about 50%. So why is it that we are looking at that number that they gave us? And it keeps increasing and the student population in our school system is decreasing.
So that's a
good question for the school board meeting.
That's our meeting because the rec department is looking at charging X budget. I want numbers when he comes here.
I can let John know to come prepared for those questions.
He should.
Suppose we put some of those students that had them working on Quechee Road.
I think we might run into issues with that one.
Hey, Trace, you gotta take the Recs Department's revenue and subtract it from the Recs Department expenses. And that's your net cost to the Rec Department. And I don't think he went up that much this year.
Yeah. I'll talk to John. I think that there's more to your question than that. So yeah.
That's pretty deep.
Yeah.
But
okay.
in the school system's the same situation. Money per student.
Yes.
Well, some of the problem down there, I think, is that do you get rid of a teacher because you've got too few students that require their needs? And the human cry is, no, we've got to have this subject for so many X number of students.
I taught school.
Okay, let's get back. Thank you for everyone's comments. I didn't hear an answer for any of them, but go ahead.
I think we should warn it at the town meeting that we're looking at.
Yes, we'll discuss it at town meeting. Yeah,
we should set a length of time before we
get into articles.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it for me.
Okay. Future agenda items or the North Hartland covered bridges is still there.
Yep, so I've reached out to V-Trans, Jimmy Price, some additional contact. I was able to finally get an answer, or a response at least. I just don't have an answer on what's going on. So I think it's just going to be continued.
Okay. So the capital plan kind of dovetailed in during the budget?
Hopefully we'll budget, and hopefully it will be on the agenda for the next meeting. I had a very productive meeting with both Two Rivers and actually an adjacent town to look at some ideas.
We had an update on the cemetery update.
Yep.
Yes, update on the update. Okay. Dirt road speed limits.
Yep. So we talked about this at the last meeting about potentially lowering the speed limits along the dirt roads in town to 30 miles an hour. I think that just says we will keep that on the agenda. Hopefully we can get to it the next meeting, the next couple of meetings.
Does that, something like that require a hearing? Or is it...
So that's the question, is I don't know the exact process, so we'll have to figure that out. Yeah.
Also, once, right?
Also, the roads, most of the roads are not posted. And then we go back to the same thing, unless otherwise posted, okay? But the roads don't have speed limit signs on them. The only one that does is Town Farm and Hartland Hill.
Jennyville has no speed sign.
Jennyville has
Okay,
no
moving
speed.
on, guys.
Can we have one last thing? Can we, in the next meeting, what's our process for reviewing the town plan? Because we're going to be getting it out by our next meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm not saying for a future agenda item for the next meeting.
Right.
I don't know.
You don't want it as an agenda item, but
I want it as an agenda item.
you want it as an agenda item.
I want to know what you want us, what we're going to do.
Okay.
I can.
Okay.
Are we taking chapters? Are we just?
Right.
Okay.
Or do we just make the town manager do it? Went so well.
I think you said
went so well
you
last
want
time.
me to tell you what the process will be. That will not be the process.
Okay, and we've already talked about the Quechee Road.
Yes, Quechee Road bond.
Is there any correspondence?
No correspondence.
Okay. We do have an executive session. I don't believe there's going to be any action. There'll be a discussion. So, Race, thank you very much. Let's take a 2-minute break here.
Are you okay?
I'm good.
Phil, you can't leave yet.
He's taking a break.
Looks like that's how
He's taking No one's making me dinner tonight, so I have
I just got a candy bar there.
We had a motion to go into, we haven't had a motion to go to executive.
You're not muted yet, by the way.
Okay.